John Fetterman breaks with Democrats and calls them, this is an anarchy. We're going to take a look about what he had to say, of course. Let's go.
Division among the Democrats. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman condemning the violent anti-ICE protests in L.A., posting on X, quote, "I unapologetically stand for free speech, peaceful demonstrations, and immigration, but this is not that. This is anarchy and true chaos. My party loses the moral high ground when we refuse to condemn setting cars on fire, destroying buildings, and assaulting law enforcement."
But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries trying to pass blame onto the Republicans.
The Department of Homeland Security, under the leadership of the so-called Secretary Kristi Noem, is a complete and total embarrassment. And so anything that they put out should be scrutinized through that lens.
Nonetheless, is that something that you would agree with?
I've made my statement on this issue.
Here to react, Fox News contributor Joe Concha. Joe, your number one job as an elected official is public safety. That's it. Every other issue is a far distant second. So why can't all Democrats, especially their so-called leader, Hakeem Jeffries, say what Fetterman said right there?
John Fetterman, again, being the voice of reason in the Democratic Party, Todd, and he'll probably have some hit pieces now written about his health, I would imagine, as a result, because the Democrats are not very happy with Mr. Fetterman right now. Look, I'm glad that Hakeem Jeffries was asked that question. What these protests, these fiery but mostly peaceful riots are about, and this is getting lost here a little bit in all the media coverage, is the Trump administration attempting to deport those here illegally, very key to mention that, here illegally, who have committed murder, including of children, of rapists, of child molesters. I mean, this is an effort that almost all sane and sober Americans support, yet Democrats are imploring their fringe supporters to resist. They won't condemn the violence, the attacks on law enforcement, only President Trump and ICE. Meanwhile, the media, Dana Bash on CNN saying these aren't, quote, real riots, unquote. Well, look at your television screens over the last 5 days. Chris Murphy, senator of Connecticut, goes on MSNBC and is telling people to take to the streets in other cities. Therefore, more riots across the country. 2020 all over again. Kamala Harris saying that it has been overwhelmingly peaceful in Los Angeles. My goodness gracious. If you live in California, why would you ever stay in that state, given the way that it is run, because Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are in charge? We are witnessing political suicide of the Democratic Party, to John Fetterman's point, in real time. They have lost the moral higher ground, and they can't lecture about enforcing the law and the laws in the books ever again if they are not condemning this the way they should.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, you said it. It's remarkable how similar what's taking place right now is to 5 years ago. I mean, if you played footage of last night's riot and asked somebody who didn't know when that took place, they would have said that was the Black Lives Matter riot of 2020. And during that time, Democrats continued to say that they were mostly peaceful protests. And here we go again.
Oh, boy. Here we go
to
again.
imagine that this time the National Guard were sent out to attack protesters that were exercising their constitutional obligation.
We don't take lightly to the president abusing his authority and unlawfully mobilizing California National Guard troops.
They're not criminals, and that is the outrage that you're seeing. And I think that if ICE left, I think if the National Guard left, you would see this all die down.
And we just lived through the...
Hold on. Are we... What? How does that make sense? She says that, and this is not working. She just comes out of her mouth. It doesn't go to the filter of the brain, processes it, and then says, no, I can't say that. I'm just going to... She just said if the National Guard left and policemen left, then they wouldn't commit crimes. They wouldn't burn places and buildings and Apple stores, and they wouldn't root and they wouldn't riot and loot stores. What? If I see a National Guardsman standing right there, I'll just walk right past him and go to do what I need to do. Why do I look at a guardsman? Why do I look at a military member or a police officer and automatically say, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind and commit crimes and loot and riot and burn the flag? Are we really that stupid? I just don't get that.
Ramifications of those remarks 5 years ago with the results of the 2024 presidential elections. So has the party learned any lessons?
So much respect for the police.
Obviously not. I mean, I can't believe these sound bites that you guys are playing where Seattle, for example, because the mayor there in 2020, the one that said it was the summer of love, when you had far left rioters took over major blocks of a major NFL city in this country, including the police station. Portland police were under siege for months by so-called protesters, literally launching firebombs at the police station. If the National Guard was called in then, that would have quelled those situations a lot faster. So President Trump, learning from that, saying, all right, I'm not waiting for a governor or mayor to tell me what I have to do here. I'm going to do, to Todd's original point, I'm going to do what I can to protect American citizens and put violent criminals out of this country who entered illegally. Again, this is absolute Thelma and Louise off the cliff suicide here that we are seeing from the Democratic Party and those in the media who are cheering it on, because the pictures tell the story just like they did with Joe Biden in 2024 when we were told that he really wasn't seeing his brain turn to applesauce, and they kept calling it cheap fake videos. These are not cheap fake. That is an assault on law enforcement, and when you see rocks and concrete blocks being dropped on their cars, someone's going to get killed. Unless something is done, President Trump is trying to do that.
Yeah, and to that point, I just want to be very clear to contradict something that the California Attorney General, Rob Bonta, said. He said this is an illegal use of the National Guard. That is incorrect. The most far-left legal professor, he now runs a law school, Dean Erwin Chemerinsky, said that President Trump's use of that code section in the United States Code to call out the National Guard when the governor fails to do so is completely legal and viable.
It sure is. It's legal and he is the commander-in-chief, by the way. You know, this notion that he can't do it. Yes, he can. He can. I'm in the military. My wife was a National Guardsman. She just retired not too long ago, or didn't retire legally, but fulfill her contract. And they can be activated by the president. Just because nobody did it before or in a long time doesn't mean that it's not legal to do so. You know, but people, again, they just want to live in their narratives and their propaganda. And, you know, so listen, if you riot, if you loot and you destroy businesses and buildings, you better go to prison. And by the way, do they really think that this helps immigrants? There's not a single the amount of illegal immigrants that are actually rioting is like this big. These are legal citizens that might be descendants of any Hispanic culture, whether it's Mexican, Peruvian, Honduran, whatever, and they feel like they have the authority just because they're citizens to do whatever they want, and they can't get deported, but they can't go to jail. And they certainly are. And if you're throwing rocks at moving vehicles, if you're looting and rioting, you're going to go in there for a long time. And I'm glad that Homan is the man in charge, and I'm glad that they are there to defend the country. Listen, if you're illegal, you got to go, man. Plain and simple. You got to go. Anyways, last but not least, we got our last segment. I appreciate everybody watching. Thank you, everybody. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Help us out.